The Lost City of Gold, Don Gonzalo Pizarro's expedition to El Dorado. Sevilla, Spain, March 1st, 1541. Whispers of El Dorado. The air hung heavy with the scent of orange blossoms and anticipation as I, Don Gonzalo Pizarro, younger brother to the famed Francisco Pizarro, paced the cobbled streets of Sevilla. News had swept through the city like a wildfire, whispers of a mythical city in the heart of South America, a place where gold adorned the very streets, and the emperor bathed in its shimmering dust. El Dorado, the Golden One. The tales originated from a ragged band of conquistadors, their faces etched with hardship and their pockets lined with curious trinkets, emeralds the size of pigeon eggs and golden figurines unlike anything seen in Spain. Their stories, though embellished by the trauma of the journey, spoke of a civilization unlike any other, a land overflowing with riches beyond imagination. Intrigue gnawed at me. While Francisco had already carved his name into history with the conquest of the Inca Empire, the allure of El Dorado, a city untouched by Spanish hands, was a siren song I couldn't ignore. The potential for glory, for unimaginable wealth, pulsed through my veins. That very night, under the watchful gaze of a crescent moon, I gathered my most trusted advisors, seasoned soldiers weary of a life of idleness, a wizened mapmaker with a thirst for adventure, and a sharp-tongued priest who, despite his piety, couldn't resist the glint of a gold doubloon. The plan was audacious. We would assemble a force of 200 men, enough to navigate the perilous jungles and subdue any resistance. Supplies would be procured: salted meats, hardtack, arquebus, and enough steel to forge our destiny. Horses, the lifeblood of any expedition, would be carefully chosen for their strength and stamina. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. The royal coffers, bolstered by the spoils of the Inca conquest, coughed up a respectable sum for our venture. Blacksmiths hammered away, crafting weapons and armor. Seamstresses toiled under flickering candlelight, mending sails and stitching sturdy leather jerkins. The air thrummed with a frenetic energy, a tangible anticipation for the unknown that lay ahead. With each passing day, the weight of responsibility settled heavily on my shoulders. The lives of these men, their hopes and dreams, rested on my decisions. Was El Dorado a mere fable or a gateway to unimaginable riches? Only time and the unwavering resolve of our expedition would tell. Sevilla, Spain, March 10th, 1541. The assembly and preparations intensify. 10 days had passed in a flurry of activity. The once empty stables were now bustling with the whinnies and stomps of 200 horses, their coats gleaming under the warm Andalusian sun. Blacksmiths finally emerged from their sooty workshops, their faces smudged but eyes proud, presenting a formidable arsenal of swords, pikes, and arquebus. The acrid tang of sweat and leather hung heavy in the air as tailors bustled about, fitting each man with a sturdy jerkin and breeches suitable for the harsh jungle terrain. I spent my days traversing the bustling port, overseeing the loading of supplies onto a pair of sturdy galleons. Barrels of salted cod and hardtack were hoisted aboard, enough to sustain the expedition for a year. Casks of wine, a morale booster for the long journey ahead, were secured alongside medical supplies and tools, saws, hammers, and axes for carving a path through the wilderness. The most crucial task, however, was assembling our crew. News of El Dorado had spread like wildfire, and the plaza overflowed with hopeful recruits. I, along with my advisors, meticulously interviewed each man, separating the seasoned veterans from the starry-eyed dreamers. We needed men who could navigate the uncharted territories, fight with unwavering courage, and endure the hardships that lay ahead. By the end of the week, our ranks were filled. A motley crew they were, weathered conquistadors with tales etched on their faces, young men with wanderlust in their eyes, and even a handful of indigenous people, their knowledge of the land invaluable. Leading them was Captain Juan Garcia, a veteran of Francisco's Inca campaign, his stoic demeanor masking a steely resolve. Father Miguel, our ever-present priest, blessed the assembled men with a voice that boomed with both piety and a hint of avarice. As I surveyed the scene, the well-stocked ships, the determined faces of the men, the glint of steel under the midday sun, a surge of pride filled me. This wasn't just an expedition, it was a gamble, a chance to etch my name into the annals of history alongside my brother. A disquieting thought, however, flickered at the edge of my consciousness. Was El Dorado a real place, or a myth spun by cunning natives? The answer, shrouded in the emerald embrace of the South American jungles, awaited us. The following days were dedicated to final preparations, drafting maps, assigning duties, and most importantly, ensuring the morale of the men remained high. Singing filled the taverns as the crew drowned their anxieties in cheap wine, while seasoned veterans regaled the younger men with tales of past conquests, both glorious and disastrous. Finally, on the crisp morning of March 20th, the day of our departure arrived. A hush fell over the usually bustling port as the men, laden with backpacks and weapons, boarded the ships. The scent of salt spray and anticipation hung heavy in the air. With a final prayer from Father Miguel and a booming order from Captain Garcia, the sails unfurled, catching the brisk wind. Sevilla faded into the distance, and our quest for El Dorado, the city of gold, began. The Atlantic Ocean, March 20th to April 10th, 1541. Setting sail for the New World. The first weeks at sea were a monotonous routine. The rhythmic creak of the ship, the endless expanse of blue sky meeting the turquoise horizon, and the salty tang on our lips became our constant companions. Days bled into nights, punctuated only by the changing of the guard, the bellowing of orders, and the thrice-daily meals of salted meat and hardtack. Boredom gnawed at the men, and tensions flared easily under the relentless sun. To combat the monotony, Captain Garcia instituted a strict schedule of drills. Swordsmanship lessons clanged on the deck, arquebus practice echoed across the waves, and sailors clambered up the rigging with practiced ease. These exercises, though grueling, served a dual purpose, keeping the men sharp and fostering a sense of camaraderie amidst the tedium. I spent my days poring over weathered maps, their parchment edges yellowed with age. The vast expanse of the Atlantic seemed endless, a watery barrier between us and the fabled jungles of South America. The mapmaker, a wiry man named Pedro, fueled my growing unease with tales of treacherous currents, monstrous sea serpents, and uncharted reefs that could rip the bottom out of a ship. His words, though unsettling, served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the seemingly placid surface. One particularly gloomy afternoon, a storm brewed on the horizon. Black clouds rolled in, blotting out the sun, and the wind picked up, whipping the sea into a frenzy. The ship, once a majestic vessel, transformed into a bucking bronco, tossed mercilessly by the waves. Orders were swallowed by the howling wind, and men scrambled to secure the sails and batten down the hatches. Fear, raw and primal, hung heavy in the air. For 2 agonizing days, the storm raged. The ship groaned under the relentless assault, and seawater threatened to breach the decks. Several men succumbed to seasickness, their pale faces and weak moans a constant reminder of our vulnerability. Finally, as if exhausted by its own fury, the storm began to abate. The clouds parted, revealing a sky washed clean and a sea shimmering under a nascent sun. As the last vestiges of the storm faded, a collective sigh of relief swept through the crew. The near disaster served as a stark reminder of the capricious nature of the sea. The vast expanse of blue that had once seemed monotonous now felt daunting, a reminder of the immense journey ahead. Yet, amidst the fear, a quiet determination grew amongst the men. They had faced a storm and emerged, battered but unbroken. If they could weather the fury of the sea, they could surely conquer any challenge that awaited them in the jungles of South America. On April 10th, after a grueling month at sea, a cry erupted from the crow's nest, "Land ahoy!" A cheer erupted from the parched throats of the men, their faces lit with a mixture of relief and anticipation. El Dorado, or perhaps just the first step towards it, lay on the horizon. Isla Margarita, Venezuela, April 11th, 1541. Setting foot on South American soil. A wave of relief washed over me as I squinted towards the smudge of green on the horizon. Land. After a seemingly endless journey across the Atlantic, we had finally reached the shores of South America. The first tendrils of dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold, casting an ethereal glow on the approaching island. Our destination, Isla Margarita, a small jewel nestled off the coast of Venezuela. As we drew closer, the island revealed itself in all its splendor. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze, their fronds rustling like whispers of secrets kept. Jagged cliffs, their bases gnawed by relentless waves, rose from the turquoise waters. A small Spanish settlement nestled on the southern coast, a cluster of whitewashed buildings with a terracotta-tiled church dominating the skyline. News of our arrival spread like wildfire. Dozens of curious faces, a mix of Spanish colonists and indigenous people, lined the shore as we dropped anchor. A delegation, led by a portly man with a neatly trimmed beard who introduced himself as Governor Hernandez, approached our ship. The following hours were a whirlwind of greetings, news exchanges, and a tense undercurrent of suspicion. Governor Hernandez, while outwardly cordial, was wary of our intentions. Rumors of El Dorado had reached even this remote island, and he was understandably cautious about a heavily armed force arriving on his doorstep. We offered a carefully constructed narrative. We claimed, an exploratory force sanctioned by the Spanish crown, seeking new trade routes and opportunities to spread the faith. Governor Hernandez, a shrewd man, wasn't entirely convinced. However, the prospect of forging an alliance with a well-equipped force, especially one with designs on the uncharted interior, was too tempting to ignore. After a tense negotiation, a deal was struck. Governor Hernandez agreed to provide us with fresh provisions, horses acclimated to the South American terrain, and even a handful of experienced guides familiar with the mainland. In return, we promised a share of any riches we might discover and, more importantly, an unspoken pledge to bolster Spanish presence in the region. The next few days were a flurry of activity. Fresh water was taken aboard, along with fruits and vegetables that offered a welcome respite from the monotony of shipboard rations. Blacksmiths from the settlement repaired any damage sustained during the voyage, while the guides, weathered men with stoic expressions and eyes that held the secrets of the jungle, familiarized themselves with our men and equipment. As I surveyed the scene, the bustling activity on the deck, the strange beauty of the island, the ever-present whisper of El Dorado in the humid air, a knot of apprehension tightened in my gut. The true test, the journey into the emerald heart of South America, was about to begin. We were leaving behind the relative comfort of the known world, venturing into the uncharted wilderness with only whispers and legends as our guide. The question that echoed in the stillness of my mind was this: would El Dorado be our salvation or our doom? Isla Margarita, Venezuela, April 18th, 1541. Into the jungle. The sun beat down mercilessly as we finally set sail from Isla Margarita, leaving behind the governor's wary hospitality and the comfort of the small island. Our two ships, now laden with fresh provisions and a contingent of native guides, cut through the turquoise water, heading towards the mainland, a verdant wall that seemed to rise endlessly from the horizon. Excitement crackled through the crew, a stark contrast to the apprehension that had simmered beneath the surface during the initial stages of the voyage. The promise of adventure, of riches beyond imagination, fueled their spirits. However, I, along with the seasoned veterans like Captain Garcia, harbored a healthy dose of caution. The stories recounted by the native guides painted a picture of a land both beautiful and unforgiving, dense jungles choked with vines, rivers teeming with unknown creatures, and indigenous tribes with a fierce reputation for defending their territory. The first few days after leaving the island were relatively uneventful. We sailed along the coast, the emerald blanket of the jungle pressing ever closer. The guides, led by a wiry man named Tenek who spoke rudimentary Spanish, pointed out landmarks, a solitary peak known as the Sleeping Giant, a river mouth clogged with tangled vegetation that they called the Maw of the Serpent. Their names, steeped in local folklore, added an unsettling mystique to the landscape. On the fifth day, we reached the mouth of a wide river, its brown water swirling and churning. According to Tenek, this was the Rio Orinoco, a waterway that snaked deep into the heart of the continent. Leaving the ships behind, we transferred our supplies and men onto smaller, more maneuverable boats, sturdy canoes hollowed out from massive tree trunks, propelled by skilled indigenous paddlers. The transition from the open sea to the constricting embrace of the jungle was immediate and dramatic. The air grew thick and humid, saturated with the musky scent of decaying vegetation and the incessant hum of unseen insects. Sunlight, once a relentless glare, filtered through the dense canopy overhead, casting the river in an eerie twilight. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic splash of paddles and the occasional screech of unseen birds. As we navigated the river's twists and turns, the immensity of the jungle pressed in on all sides. Trees, their branches intertwined in an impenetrable network, formed a green tunnel above us. Lianas, thick as a man's arm, dangled like monstrous tentacles, and vibrant flowers bloomed in riotous colors, their beauty laced with a hint of danger. The guides navigated with an uncanny skill, their practiced eyes scanning the riverbank for landmarks and dangers unseen by our untrained eyes. The first night on the river was a symphony of unfamiliar sounds, the guttural croaking of frogs, the high-pitched shriek of bats, and the unsettling rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. Sleep came in short bursts, punctuated by the prickling sensation of unseen eyes watching us from the shadows. The following days blurred into a relentless routine, navigating the river's treacherous currents, hacking our way through dense undergrowth when the river became impassable, and fending off the relentless attacks of mosquitoes and other biting insects. Our initial excitement began to wane, replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. The jungle, once a source of wonder, now felt like a living prison, its emerald beauty masking a hidden hostility. One evening, as we camped on a sandbar by the riverbank, Tenek approached me, his face etched with concern. He spoke of whispers heard in the jungle, stories of a tribe known as the Jaguar people, fierce warriors who guarded the secrets of the interior. His words sent a shiver down my spine. Was El Dorado just a myth, a lure to draw unsuspecting explorers into the deadly embrace of the jungle? Or was there a kernel of truth, a hidden city guarded by those who wouldn't hesitate to defend it with their lives? Deep within the Amazon rainforest, South America, April 19th, 1541. Encounter with the Jaguar people. The flickering firelight cast grotesque shadows on the faces of my men, their expressions etched with a mix of exhaustion and apprehension. Tenika's words hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond the comforting glow of the flames. The Jaguar people, a name that conjured images of savage warriors and deadly rituals, seemed to echo in the night's symphony of unseen creatures. Sleep was a fleeting visitor that night. Every rustle in the undergrowth, every screech of an unseen bird, sent tremors of fear through the camp. The jungle, once a source of wonder, now felt like a hostile entity waiting to pounce. As dawn painted the eastern sky with streaks of gold, we broke camp, a sense of urgency propelling us forward. The river narrowed, its banks lined with dense vegetation that scraped against the sides of our canoes. The air grew thick and stagnant, the stench of decaying leaves and damp earth filling our nostrils. The rhythmic chatter of the native guide ceased, replaced by a tense silence. Suddenly, a guttural war cry pierced the stillness. From the undergrowth, a group of figures emerged, their bodies painted with intricate designs in black and red, feathers adorning their heads, and jaguar pelts draped across their shoulders. These were the Jaguar people, the very warriors Tenek had warned us about. Their leader, a hulking figure with a jaguar skull necklace adorning his chest, stepped forward. He spoke in a guttural language, his voice a low growl that vibrated through the air. Tenek, his face pale with fear, translated his words. We were trespassing on sacred ground, he warned, and our intrusion wouldn't be tolerated. He demanded to know our intentions and the reason for our presence in their territory. The situation was precarious. One wrong move, one misunderstanding, and a fight could erupt, a battle we were ill-equipped to win. I stepped forward, my voice firm despite the tremor in my heart. Through Tenek, I explained our mission, a peaceful exploration sanctioned by the Spanish crown, seeking new trade routes and opportunities to spread the faith. There was a tense silence as the leader of the Jaguar people considered my words. His eyes, narrowed and watchful, scanned our faces, searching for any hint of deception. Finally, he spoke again, his voice softer this time. He offered us safe passage through his territory on one condition: we leave behind an offering for their ancestors, a token of respect for their land. Relief washed over me like a cool wave. We readily agreed, presenting them with a selection of trinkets, brightly colored cloth, steel knives, and a few gold trinkets salvaged from our dwindling supplies. The leader of the Jaguar people seemed satisfied. He gestured to his warriors, and they parted the foliage, revealing a narrow path that led deeper into the jungle. With a final warning not to stray from the path, the Jaguar people vanished as swiftly as they had appeared. We continued our journey, hearts pounding but spirits lifted. The encounter, though unnerving, had shown us a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, El Dorado wasn't just a myth, and the Jaguar people, with their knowledge of the interior, held the key to finding it. April 20th, 1541, deeper into the jungle. The weight of 1,000 anxieties settled on my shoulders. The encounter with the Jaguar people had been tense, a precarious dance between diplomacy and potential bloodshed. Now, with Captain Garcia incapacitated by a venomous thorn, we were forced to return, our initial bravado replaced by a desperate plea for help. Fear simmered amongst the men. Doubts gnawed at their resolve. Would the Jaguar people see us as weak and vulnerable, ripe for an attack? Or would they, perhaps, recognize our desperation and offer aid? The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, as we debated our next course of action. Finally, Father Miguel, his voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in his hands, spoke up. "We have no choice," he declared. "The captain's life hangs in the balance. We must return to the Jaguar people, explain our predicament, and hope for their compassion." His words resonated through the group. With a heavy heart, I knew he was right. Our pride, our thirst for El Dorado, had to be put on hold. The captain's life, the safety of my men, took precedence. We retraced our steps, the jungle path now seeming even more treacherous in the fading light. The once frightening war cries now held a sliver of hope, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. As we neared the clearing where we had first encountered the Jaguar people, a tense silence hung in the air. Would they be there? Would they even remember us? Emerging from the undergrowth, we called out, our voices echoing eerily in the stillness. A rustle in the foliage, a flash of movement. The Jaguar people materialized from the shadows. This time, however, their expressions were not hostile, but curious. Through Tenek, I explained our predicament, the captain's injury, and our desperate need for help. The leader of the Jaguar people, his face etched with stoicism, listened intently. A tense silence followed, filled only by the chirping of unseen insects. Finally, he spoke. His words, translated by Tenek, held a surprising warmth. He acknowledged the severity of the captain's condition and, to our immense relief, offered a solution. They possessed an antidote, a poultice made from a rare jungle herb that could potentially save the captain's life. However, there was a price. The leader demanded a further offering, something of value, a symbol of our respect for their land and their knowledge. Relief washed over me, so intense it almost felt like a physical sensation. We readily agreed, presenting them with the remainder of our gold trinkets, a paltry offering compared to the life they were saving. The leader of the Jaguar people accepted our offering with a curt nod. He then led 2 of his warriors forward, beckoning us to follow. They led us deeper into the jungle, their movements swift and silent, until we reached a hidden clearing bathed in an ethereal moonlight. There, they revealed a small hut, its thatched roof blending seamlessly with the surrounding foliage. An old woman, her face lined with wrinkles that spoke of a life lived in the jungle, emerged. With practiced hands, she prepared the antidote, a foul-smelling concoction made from crushed leaves and roots. The captain, weak but conscious, winced as the poultice was applied to his wound. The old woman offered no words of comfort, but her eyes held a flicker of empathy. We spent the night under the watchful gaze of the jaguar people, a tense truce hanging in the air. As dawn painted the sky with streaks of orange and pink, the old woman emerged from the hut. The venom, she declared, had been neutralized. The captain, though weakened, would live. Relief, like a tidal wave, washed over the men. Tears welled up in some eyes, weary smiles cracked weathered faces. We had come to the jaguar people as trespassers, and they had sent us away as grateful guests, their compassion saving the life of our leader. The encounter had been a stark reminder of the power and the perils of the jungle. It had also shown us a glimpse of humanity, a spark of kindness amidst the untamed wilderness. As we prepared to depart, a newfound respect simmered between us and the jaguar people. Perhaps, just perhaps, this encounter wasn't just a stroke of luck, but a turning point in our quest for El Dorado. April 21st, 1541. A debt repaid. The rising sun cast long shadows through the dense foliage as we bid farewell to the jaguar people. Captain Garcia, his face pale but his eyes filled with gratitude, addressed the leader, his voice hoarse but firm. "We are in your debt," he declared. "You have saved my life, and we will not forget your kindness." The leader of the jaguar people, his expression stoic, inclined his head in a curt acknowledgement. He then spoke a few words in his guttural language, which Tenek translated. "The jungle is a harsh mistress," he said, "but for those who show respect, it can offer unexpected rewards." His words were cryptic, but they held a hint of promise, a glimmer of hope in our ongoing quest for El Dorado. With renewed determination, we resumed our journey deeper into the Emerald Labyrinth. The path, once barely visible, seemed clearer now, almost as if the jaguar people had subtly guided our steps. The oppressive humidity and the incessant drone of insects remained, but a sense of camaraderie, forged in the crucible of shared danger, had taken root amongst us. Days blurred into weeks as we hacked our way through the undergrowth, navigating by the position of the sun and the occasional landmark pointed out by Tenek. Our supplies dwindled, replaced by a meager diet of wild berries and game hunted by our most skilled marksmen. The jungle, beautiful yet relentless, tested our physical and mental resilience. One particularly humid afternoon, as we pushed through a particularly dense thicket, Tenek let out a startled cry. He pointed ahead, his eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. Through a gap in the foliage, we glimpsed a sight that sent a tremor of excitement through the group. There, nestled in a valley veiled by a misty curtain, lay a cluster of stone structures unlike anything we had encountered before. The buildings, though weathered by time, were intricately carved with geometric patterns and stylized figures. A sense of awe descended upon us. Could this be it? Could this be the first glimpse of El Dorado, the legendary city of gold? Hope, like a flickering flame, danced in our hearts. We had come further than anyone before us, endured hardships unimaginable, and forged an unlikely alliance with a fierce indigenous tribe. The sight before us, shrouded in mystery yet radiating an undeniable majesty, served as a tangible reward for our perseverance. As we cautiously approached the valley, anticipation crackled in the air. The jungle, once an oppressive force, seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the answer to a question that had echoed through the ages. Had we finally found El Dorado, or were we about to stumble into another cruel trick played by the wilderness? April 25th, 1541. The Lost City Revealed. The humid air hung heavy as we descended into the valley, our hearts pounding a frantic rhythm against our ribs. The stone structures, glimpsed from afar, grew larger with each step, their intricate carvings becoming more distinct. The air, once thick with the scent of decaying vegetation, now carried a faint whiff of something else, an unfamiliar aroma that tickled our curiosity and fueled our anticipation. We emerged from the dense foliage into a clearing dominated by a towering pyramid. Its steps, weathered and moss-covered, led to a platform where a single figure stood, silhouetted against the afternoon sun. As we approached, the figure descended, revealing an elderly man adorned with vibrant feathers and intricate body paint. His gaze, sharp and intelligent, swept across our group, lingering on Captain Garcia and me. Tenek, ever the bridge between cultures, stepped forward and began speaking in his native tongue. The elder listened intently, his expression unreadable. Finally, after a tense silence, he spoke back, his voice surprisingly melodic for one so weathered by time. Tenek translated his words. "Welcome," the elder intoned, "strangers from a faraway land. You have come seeking the city of gold," a legend whispered on the wind. His words sent a shiver down my spine. Did he know about El Dorado? Was this city the source of the rumors? We explained our journey, the hardships endured, and the debt we owed to the Jaguar people. The elder listened patiently, his eyes conveying a wisdom born of years spent in the heart of the jungle. When we finished, he spoke again. El Dorado, he declared, is not a city built of gold, but a city that holds a different kind of treasure. His words were a bombshell, shattering our long-held belief. Disappointment washed over some of the men, their dreams of riches seemingly dashed. The elder, sensing our disillusionment, continued. This city, he gestured towards the towering pyramid, was once a center of learning, a place where knowledge was revered above all else. Our people, the Incas, studied the stars, cultivated the land, and lived in harmony with the jungle. He spoke of a time before the Spanish arrived, a time of peace and prosperity. He spoke of their connection to the spirits of the forest, their understanding of the delicate balance between man and nature. His words were a stark contrast to the greed that had driven us on this perilous journey. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the valley, the elder made a proposition. He offered us shelter and sustenance, a chance to learn about his people and their way of life. In return, he requested stories of the outside world, of the changes wrought by the Spanish conquest. A palpable tension hung in the air. We had come seeking riches, but found something far more profound, a chance to glimpse a lost civilization, to learn from their wisdom, and, perhaps, to right the wrongs committed by our countrymen. Captain Garcia, his voice filled with a newfound respect, spoke for the group. "We accept your offer," he declared. "We come as guests, with a desire to learn and understand." A flicker of a smile played on the elder's lips. He gestured towards the pyramid. "Welcome, then, strangers," he said. "Welcome to the lost city of Paititi." May 2nd, 1541, learning from the past. The weeks that followed our arrival in Paititi were a revelation. Gone were the relentless pursuit of gold and the constant fear of the unknown. In their place, a sense of wonder and a thirst for knowledge took root. The Incas, under the guidance of the elder we came to know as Amayuda, meaning wise one, opened their world to us. We were housed in simple, yet surprisingly comfortable, dwellings nestled at the base of the pyramid. Our days were filled with learning. Amayuda, a patient and insightful teacher, shared with us the secrets of their agricultural practices, their intricate astronomical observations, and their deep respect for the natural world. We learned about the medicinal properties of various jungle plants, the techniques they use to cultivate fertile land in the heart of the rainforest, and their sophisticated calendar system based on the movements of the sun and moon. The evenings were spent around crackling fires, listening to stories of their ancestors, their triumphs and tragedies. We, in turn, shared tales of our own land, the vastness of the Spanish Empire, and the technological advancements that had propelled us across the ocean. As days turned into weeks, a profound shift occurred within our group. The initial disappointment at not finding a city literally paved with gold melted away. Instead, we found ourselves captivated by the Incas' wisdom, their harmonious relationship with nature, and their simple yet fulfilling way of life. One evening, as we sat around the fire, Captain Garcia, his face reflecting the flames, voiced a sentiment shared by many of us. "We came here seeking riches," he admitted, "but we have found something far more valuable: knowledge and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us." His words resonated with a quiet hum of agreement. The greed that had fueled our initial journey had been replaced by a newfound respect for the Incas and a growing concern for their future. The stories we shared about the Spanish conquest, the relentless pursuit of wealth and subjugation of indigenous peoples, painted a grim picture that hung heavy in the air. One afternoon, while exploring the outskirts of the city, I stumbled upon a hidden chamber within the pyramid. Inside, dust-covered scrolls and artifacts lay scattered across the floor. With Amada's permission, I spent the following days meticulously documenting and translating the contents. The scrolls, written in a beautiful script, revealed the history of Paititi, its rise and fall, and a chilling prophecy. The prophecy spoke of a disease carried by men from the east, a plague that would devastate their people and their way of life. It spoke of a time of darkness and despair, but also of a faint glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption through the actions of outsiders who would come to understand and respect the balance of nature. The weight of this discovery settled heavily on my shoulders. We, the very men the prophecy warned of, had arrived at the doorstep of Paititi. Were we the harbingers of their destruction, or could we, through the knowledge we had gained, become instruments of their salvation? The answer, I knew, lay not in the pursuit of personal gain, but in the choices we made next. Would we exploit the Incas' vulnerability, or would we use our newfound understanding to help them prepare for the coming storm? The fate of Paititi, it seemed, rested precariously in our hands. May 9th, 1541. A difficult choice. The revelation of the prophecy cast a long shadow over our days in Paititi. The joy of discovery and cultural exchange was tinged with a gnawing sense of responsibility. We were no longer just visitors. We were potential harbingers of doom, outsiders who held the key to the Incas' future, for better or worse. The knowledge gleaned from the scrolls became a source of heated debate among our men. Some, fueled by a lingering greed, saw an opportunity to exploit the Incas' vulnerability, perhaps even force them to reveal the location of any hidden caches of gold that might exist. Others, deeply affected by the warmth and wisdom of the Inca people, argued for a more compassionate approach, one focused on sharing their medical knowledge and helping them prepare for the coming disease. Captain Garcia, his face etched with worry, called a meeting to discuss the best course of action. The air crackled with tension as different viewpoints clashed. The future of our expedition, and perhaps the fate of Paititi itself, hung in the balance. I rose, the weight of the scrolls heavy in my hand. I recounted the prophecy, its chilling warning, and its flickering ember of hope. "We can be the harbingers of destruction," I declared, "or we can be the instrument of their salvation. The choice is ours, and it will define our legacy." My words resonated with many of the men. They had witnessed the Incas' gentle way of life, their deep respect for nature, and their unwavering hospitality in the face of potential danger. The thought of exploiting them now seemed abhorrent. One by one, the men voiced their opinions. Several, hardened by years of exploration and warfare, still harbored a desire for riches. But a growing majority, touched by the Incas' wisdom and moved by the prophecy's weight, sided with compassion. Captain Garcia, his voice firm, finally spoke. "We came here seeking El Dorado," he admitted. "But we have found something far more valuable, a connection with the people who hold the key to a sustainable and harmonious life. We will not be the ones to bring them down. Instead, we will share our knowledge and help them prepare for the challenges that lie ahead." A wave of relief washed over me. The greed that had fueled our journey had been replaced by a newfound purpose, to act as a bridge between two cultures, to safeguard the Incas' knowledge, and to help them weather the coming storm. The following days were filled with a renewed sense of collaboration. We shared our rudimentary medical knowledge, teaching them basic sanitation practices and herbal remedies that could potentially mitigate the effects of the prophesied disease. In return, the Incas revealed their intricate agricultural techniques, their sophisticated understanding of the jungle ecology, and their secrets for living in harmony with the natural world. As the time for our departure approached, a bittersweet feeling settled over us. We were leaving behind a newfound home and friends, a world that offered a stark contrast to the one we knew. Yet, we also carried a newfound understanding, a sense of purpose that transcended the initial pursuit of riches. Amayuda, his weathered face etched with a mix of sadness and gratitude, presented Captain Garcia with a parting gift, a small, intricately carved golden disc depicting the constellation of the Southern Cross. "Remember," he said, his voice raspy with age, "true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in knowledge, understanding, and respect for the delicate balance of all things." His words echoed in our hearts as we embarked on our journey back, leaving behind the lost city of Paititi and carrying within us the legacy of a forgotten civilization. The promise of El Dorado, the legendary city of gold, may have remained elusive, but we had discovered something far more valuable, a connection with a people who held the key to a sustainable future, and a responsibility to ensure their knowledge wouldn't be lost to the world. The end.